There is something deeply wrong with how we approach winter. Imagine the power grid fails in the dead of winter. For a modern home, temperatures drop rapidly. Within hours, the house becomes uninhabitable. We see it in the news: burst pipes, families huddling for warmth, complete system failure. But for a medieval peasant, this wasn't an emergency. It was just another winter day. They faced brutal freezing conditions without our technology. They didn't just survive, they mastered it. How did they create warmth with nothing but what the land provided? What can their forgotten knowledge teach us about true resilience? We look back on medieval peasants as primitive, short lives, brutal conditions, perpetually cold. But this picture is incomplete. They were the original survivalists. Their ingenuity has been largely forgotten. They didn't have Gore-Tex, but they knew how to use animal fat to make clothes shed water. They didn't have thermostats, but they could turn their entire house into a slow-release heater. This wasn't random tricks. It was a complete interconnected system. Every skill supported the next, a system that worked for centuries. Today we investigate the most vital secrets, timeless strategies for food, warmth and shelter, just as effective today as 1,000 years ago. Secret 1. The perpetual pantry. The first problem of winter was hunger. Once the harvest came in, the land offered almost nothing for months. No supermarkets, no refrigerators. How did they keep an entire harvest from rotting? The most fundamental method was drying. Microorganisms that cause spoilage need water to survive. Remove the water, stop the spoilage. Peasants hung sliced fruits, vegetables and thin meat strips from the rafters near the hearth. The gentle rising heat slowly dried them. This created shelf-stable food for months. Modern studies reveal properly dried foods retain 95% of their nutrients. Sun-dried tomatoes concentrate lycopene by 35% compared to fresh. Medieval preservation often improved nutritional density. Next came salting. Salt pulls moisture out through osmosis. When meat was packed in salt or heavy brine, it created an environment too dry for microbes to thrive. The Vikings perfected this for long sea voyages. Salt concentration of 20 to 25% by weight, the same ratio modern food scientists recommend. A single pig, properly salted, could provide protein for a family of 5 for 3 months. Shredded cabbage packed with salt created brine. This protected the cabbage from oxygen. It allowed beneficial bacteria to convert sugars into lactic acid. This acid dropped pH below 4.6. Most harmful bacteria cannot survive. The result was sauerkraut, not just preserved, packed with probiotics vital for gut health. Korean kimchi uses the same principle. Clinical trials show it boosts immune function by 25% during winter months. For fresh food, the solution was the root cellar. By digging below the frost line, peasants created space that stayed consistently cool, 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Potatoes, carrots, turnips and beets layered in sand remained fresh for 4 to 7 months. Sand prevented them from touching. One bad vegetable can spoil dozens through ethylene gas. Storage wasn't random. Peasants calculated. A family of 5 needed roughly 3,000 calories per day. For a 120-day winter, that's 360,000 calories minimum. They stored high-density foods first. Rendered fat at 9 calories per gram, nuts at 6 calories per gram, dried meats at 4 calories per gram. A pound of tallow provided 4,000 calories. A pound of dried apples? Only 1,200. They knew the math. Their lives depended on it. Cooked meats were packed into crocks. Thick melted animal fat was poured over the top. As the fat cooled, it solidified. This created an airtight seal, locked out oxygen and bacteria. This method, known as confit, preserved meat for up to 6 months. These weren't individual tricks. They were an integrated system. When blizzards raged, there would be food on the table. Secret 2. The living furnace. Once the larder was full, the next problem was cold. Peasant homes were not airtight. Firewood was precious. How did they survive nights that plunged far below freezing? An average adult produces approximately 100 watts of heat, roughly equal to a light bulb. Not much alone. But multiply that by 5 or 6 people sleeping close together under shared insulation. The numbers change dramatically. Medieval peasants practiced communal sleeping as deliberate survival strategy. Entire families slept together in a single large bed. By huddling under thick woolen blankets, they created a microclimate. A 2015 study by the University of Oulu in Finland tested this. 4 people sleeping together under wool blankets in a 40-degree room maintained 65 to 68 degrees, perfectly comfortable. An individual sleeper alone could only maintain 50 to 55 degrees. But the concept extended beyond humans. In many longhouses, the family lived under the same roof as livestock during winter. This was thermal engineering. A single cow produces 1,500 to 2,000 watts of heat, the equivalent of a space heater running continuously. Sheep produce about 150 watts each. These animals weren't in the living space. They were separated by a wooden partition, but the shared roof allowed warm air to circulate. Shared walls conducted heat directly. Studies of reconstructed longhouses show this arrangement raised interior temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees, the difference between freezing and sleeping comfortably. The choice between smelling like a barnyard or freezing to death was simple. Warmth was life. Medieval beds were raised platforms, often 2 to 3 feet high. This served two purposes. Cold air sinks, the coldest air pools at floor level. By sleeping elevated, they placed themselves above the coldest zone. The space beneath was filled with straw or dried grass. This created massive insulation between sleepers and frozen ground. The mattress itself was stuffed with straw. Straw's hollow stalks trap air. A 6-inch straw mattress provides R9 insulation, comparable to modern fiberglass batting. By combining body heat, animal heat, and natural insulation, they transformed simple beds into life-sustaining furnaces. If this practical knowledge is valuable to you, hit that like button. It helps this information reach others who need it. I'm grateful you're here learning with me. Secret 3. The portable radiator. The central hearth was the heart of the home, but open fires are incredibly inefficient. Studies show traditional hearths lose 80 to 90% of heat straight up through the roof. How did they make that heat last through long winter nights? They turned fire into a portable source of warmth using stone. Throughout the evening, peasants placed large dense stones directly into the embers. These weren't random rocks. Stone selection mattered. Soapstone has the highest heat capacity of any natural stone. Granite was abundant and worked well. Sandstone was avoided. It tends to crack and explode when heated. After 2 to 3 hours in glowing coals at 800 to 1,000 degrees, these stones stored enormous thermal energy. A 10-pound soapstone, heated to 800 degrees, contains approximately 3,500 BTUs, enough to warm a small space for 6 to 8 hours. Before bed, hot stones were pulled from embers using tongs. They wrapped the stones in multiple layers of thick wool cloth, never linen, which could scorch. The wrapping served two purposes: prevented burns and controlled heat release. The fabric layers slowed heat dissipation. A Norwegian study tested this using period-accurate materials. A properly wrapped hot stone maintained usable warmth above 100 degrees for 6 to 8 hours, a full night's sleep. Wrapped stones were tucked at the foot of the bed, warming the feet which lose heat rapidly, against the abdomen, warming the body's core, between sleepers, creating a central heat source. This isn't just historical curiosity. During the Texas power crisis of February 2021, some people rediscovered this technique. Those who heated stones survived comfortably, while neighbors shivered. The peasant converted fast, intense flame energy into slow, steady, radiant heat, thermal batteries charged and deployed exactly when needed. Secret 4. The ash banking method. Starting a fire in medieval winter was hard work. Flint and steel in freezing temperatures, numb hands, damp tinder. It could take 15 minutes or more. So peasants developed a technique to never let fire die. It's called banking the fire. Before bed, when fire had burned down to hot coals, they carefully raked coals into a compact pile, 6 to 8 inches in diameter. Then they covered this with hardwood ash, about 2 to 3 inches deep. Why hardwood ash specifically? It has ideal properties. Low thermal conductivity, acts as insulation. Fine particle size creates a dense blanket that limits oxygen flow. The physics are elegant. Ash traps heat while limiting oxygen supply. By restricting oxygen while maintaining heat, the coals enter extremely slow smouldering combustion. They don't flame. There isn't enough oxygen, but they don't extinguish either. They oxidize at a glacial pace, staying alive at 400 to 500 degrees. 12 hours later, a peasant would push away the ash from one side. Underneath, those coals would still be glowing red-orange, alive. They'd add dry tinder, lean in close, blow gently on exposed coals. Within 10 to 20 seconds, tinder would catch flame. Add kindling, then larger wood. The fire was fully restored. No flint, no steel, no wasted time or effort. Modern bushcraft practitioners have tested this extensively. Properly banked hardwood coals last 18 to 24 hours. Charcoal can last 36 to 48 hours or more. The Colonial Williamsburg Foundation uses this technique daily. Their record is 31 hours. A Thursday evening fire, revived on Saturday morning. Key variables for success. Coal quality must be hardwood oak, maple or hickory. Minimum 2 to 3 pounds of compacted coals. Ash depth 2 to 3 inches. Too thin, loses heat too fast. Too thick, suffocates completely. This technique works in any wood-burning setup today. Wood stoves, fireplaces, campfires. During a power outage in winter, this technique can stretch a week's firewood to last the full week. Fuel savings are dramatic. Typically 40 to 60% reduction in wood consumption. The peasant understood the hardest part of fire isn't maintaining it, it's starting it, so they never let it die. Secret 5. The winter wardrobe. Without central heating, you had to wear your warmth. The medieval winter wardrobe was carefully engineered. Multi-layered personal insulation. Modern outdoor enthusiasts call it layering. The peasants invented it. The layer closest to skin was always linen. This is counterintuitive. We associate linen with summer. But linen wicks moisture away from skin more effectively than any natural fibre except silk. When a person worked and sweated, the linen pulled dampness away through capillary action. This was critical for survival. Water conducts heat away from the body 25 times faster than air. Staying dry wasn't just comfort, it was prevent wet. Unlike cotton or down, damp wool continues to provide warmth. They layered multiple thin woolen garments. This created air gaps between layers. Additional insulation zones. A typical winter outfit included woolen tunic, woolen over-tunic, woolen hose, and woolen hood. Each layer trapped its own air zone. The outermost layer was a heavy woolen cloak, made more water-resistant through fulling. The woven wool was pounded in water. This caused fibres to mat together more tightly, increased density, and reduced air gaps at the surface, made fabric more windproof and water-resistant. Some natural lanolin was deliberately left in the fibres. Lanolin is hydrophobic. It repels water. A well-made cloak with retained lanolin could shed light rain and snow for hours. The body's extremities lose heat disproportionately, hands, feet and head. Feet wore leather boots, waterproofed by rubbing with animal fat. Inside, thick woolen stockings. Some cultures used felt boot liners. Compressed wool providing R4 per inch. Hands wore woolen mittens, not gloves. Mittens are warmer because fingers share heat, often lined with rabbit fur. Head wore woolen hood or coif, sometimes fur-lined. The head can account for 7 to 10% of body heat loss. In 2018, the University of York conducted a test. They dressed volunteers in period-accurate medieval winter clothing, monitored core body temperature during exposure to -4 degrees Fahrenheit while chopping wood for 4 hours. Results: core body temperature remained stable at 98.2 to 98.8 degrees. Fingers stayed above 60 degrees. Comfort rating 7 out of 10, comparable to modern cold weather gear. The system worked, not because it was primitive, because it was engineered through centuries of experience. Secret 6. The snow insulation barrier. Modern logic says keep snow away from your house. It's cold, it's wet, it's the enemy. Medieval peasants in the coldest regions saw snow differently. They saw insulation. In Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, the Alpine zones, and Russian steppes, peasants developed a practice that seems insane. They deliberately banked snow against their walls. 2 to 3 feet of compacted snow along the entire north wall, where the coldest winds came from. Snow is approximately 90 to 95% trapped air. Those air pockets give snow its insulating properties. Fresh powder snow has R1.0 per inch. Lightly compacted snow has R1.9 per inch. Hard-packed snow has R1.7 per inch. 2 feet of properly compacted snow provides R value of 18 to 21, comparable to modern fiberglass insulation. But there's an additional benefit. The snow created a dead airspace between itself and the exterior wall. This added another R6 to R8, bringing total insulation to R24 to R29. Modern building codes in cold climates require R20 to R30 for walls. The peasants achieved modern standards using frozen water. They didn't just throw snow against the house. The method was refined. Done after first significant snowfall, lightly packed, just firm enough to hold shape. Overcompaction squeezes out air pockets. Focused on windward walls, built up to window sills, angled slightly away from wall to shed meltwater. In severe winters, they'd bank the entire perimeter. The dwelling became a semi-igloo. This isn't just history, it's emergency preparedness. During prolonged power outages in winter, This technique can be deployed on any house. Bank snow against north-facing walls. Pack around foundation. Leave doors and windows clear for safety. Combined with interior methods can reduce heating needs by 30 to 50%. A 2016 study by the Arctic University of Norway used thermal imaging. A replica 14th century dwelling without snowbanking lost heat at 3,200 BTU per hour in -10 degrees. With 2 feet of snow on the north wall, heat loss dropped to 1,900 BTU per hour, reduction of 40%. That translates directly to firewood savings. Burn 40% less wood for the same internal temperature. The peasants didn't fight snow. They recruited it in their battle against cold. Secret 7. The caloric loading strategy. Modern nutritionists tell us to limit fat intake, 20 to 30% of calories. Any more is dangerous. Medieval peasants would have died following that advice. In winter, their diet changed dramatically. Summer meals were 20 to 25% fat. Winter meals, 50% or more. This wasn't ignorance, it was metabolic engineering. The physics are simple. Fat provides 9 calories per gram. Protein and carbohydrates provide only 4. In a world where every calorie was precious, caloric density was survival. A single tablespoon of lard provided 115 calories, the equivalent of 2 large potatoes. When trying to hit 3,500 calories per day through hard labor in the cold, volume becomes limiting. You literally cannot eat enough vegetables to survive. But there's more. The process of metabolizing fat generates more internal heat than metabolizing carbohydrates. It's called the thermic effect of food. For the same calorie intake, a high-fat diet produces measurably more body heat. Modern research on brown adipose tissue confirms this. Humans can activate internal furnaces that burn fat specifically for heat production. A 2014 study in Cell Metabolism showed subjects consuming a high-fat diet for 6 weeks in cold conditions increased brown fat activity by 45%. Their resting metabolic rate increased by 12%. They burned more calories at rest, generated more heat passively. A typical winter day for a peasant. Lard fried bread for breakfast, fatty pork and beans for midday, barley porridge with butter for evening. Rendered animal fat was added to nearly everything. Total, roughly 3,000 calories, 50% from fat. The medieval peasant worked 8 to 12 hours of hard physical labor daily, walked 5 to 10 miles as part of normal activity, had no processed foods, trans fats or refined sugars, ate seasonally. They were in near constant caloric deficit with extremely high activity levels. Skeletal analysis shows lean muscle mass with low body fat percentages. So was a 50% fat diet healthy for them? Absolutely. Optimal, even. Would it be healthy for a modern sedentary office worker? No. Context is everything. Today, outdoor workers, Arctic researchers and winter athletes rediscover this principle. And Arctic expeditions use 40 to 50% fat diets during field operations. Winter lumberjacks historically consumed 6,000 to 8,000 calories per day, 40 to 45% fat. When it's -20 degrees and you're burning massive calories, fat isn't just food, it's fuel for your internal furnace. The lesson isn't eat like a peasant. The lesson is match your fuel to your activity and environment. Secret 8. The art of tallow. In the peasant's world, every part of a slaughtered animal was used. One of the most versatile resources was animal fat, tallow from cows and sheep, lard from pigs. This was an all-in-one survival tool. The process began with rendering, slowly heating raw fat to melt it. This was done in a large iron pot over low heat. Temperature control was critical. Too hot and the fat would scorch. Rendered properly at 180 to 220 degrees, the result was pure shelf-stable fat that could last months. Tallow was the primary fuel for candles. A tallow candle burns at approximately 13 lumens, about 1/6 the light of a modern 60-watt bulb. But in total darkness, even dim light was precious. The downside, tallow candles smoked and smelled like burning meat, but they burned for 4 to 6 hours per ounce. Rubbed into leather boots, tallow created a hydrophobic barrier. The long-chain fatty acids penetrate the leather's structure and block water. This needed reapplication every few weeks, but the alternative was soaked leather, wet feet, frostbite, amputation or death. The same treatment was applied to wool cloaks, leather gloves, rope and tool handles. Rendered fat was cooking fat with a high smoke point, 420 degrees for beef tallow. This meant it could be used for frying without breaking down. The fat itself was food. Bread was fried in lard, oats cooked in tallow, root vegetables roasted in fat drippings. Rendered fat was used as skincare. Peasants rubbed it on hands and faces to create protective barrier against windburn and frostbite. Tallow is primarily composed of palmitic acid, stearic acid, and oleic acid. These fatty acids are structurally similar to human sebum. When applied topically, they form a biomimetic barrier. A 2017 dermatology study found tallow-based ointments reduced moisture loss by 35% in cold, dry conditions. When mixed with lye, leached from wood ash, a chemical reaction called saponification occurs. Fat plus lye equals soap plus glycerin. Medieval soap was harsh, high pH, strong smell, but effective at removing dirt and grease. Today, you likely won't render your own tallow, but the principles remain. Lanolin cream is available at any pharmacy. Waterproof skin just as effectively. Coconut oil provides similar properties. Beeswax works for waterproofing leather and fabric. The lesson isn't use tallow. The lesson is understand the properties of fats. Water repelling, heat retaining, calorie dense, multipurpose. One substance solving 7 different survival problems. That's elegant system design. Secret 9. The grease layer. Medieval peasants rarely bathed in winter. To our modern sensibility, this sounds disgusting. But look at it through the lens of survival physics. A different picture emerges. When you wash skin with soap, you strip away natural oils, specifically sebum, a waxy substance produced by sebaceous glands. This oily layer serves multiple functions. Hydrophobic barrier that repels water, antimicrobial properties, thermoregulatory function, reducing evaporative heat loss, protective film against environmental irritants. In summer, when it's hot and you're sweating heavily, frequent washing makes sense, but in winter, washing frequently strips away your primary skin defense. Peasants who worked with sheep discovered this instinctively. Lanolin in sheep's wool transferred to their hands and face. They noticed these areas didn't chap or frostburn as readily. Lanolin is chemically similar to human sebum. When applied to skin, it reinforces the existing lipid barrier. Some peasants deliberately rubbed lanolin or rendered fat into exposed skin before outdoor work. This created an enhanced waterproof, windproof barrier. Water on skin conducts heat away from the body approximately 25 times faster than air. Even minor wetness dramatically increases heat loss. The greasy layer prevented moisture from reaching skin surface. A 2009 US Army study compared heat loss rates. Clean skin versus skin treated with lanolin-based barrier cream in cold, humid conditions. Clean skin had heat flux of 110 watts per square metre. Treated skin had 78 watts per square metre. Reduction of 29%. That 29% difference sustained over hours or days could mean the difference between maintaining core temperature and sliding into hypothermia. This doesn't mean peasants never bathe. The practice was seasonal. Summer, bathing 1 to 2 times per month, sometimes weekly during harvest. Winter, bathing reduced to once every 4 to 8 weeks, or not at all for the poorest. This wasn't laziness. It was risk management. Bathing in winter meant heating large amounts of water, stripping naked in a cold room, getting wet all over, removing protective skin oils. The risk-benefit calculation made winter bathing impractical for survival. Today, we're not suggesting you stop bathing, but the principle remains valid. Before winter outdoor work, outdoor professionals apply lanolin cream to hands and face, petroleum jelly to exposed skin, barrier cream specifically designed for cold weather work. During multi-day winter expeditions, mountaineers and polar explorers limit washing to critical areas with minimal water. Avoid full body washing which strips protective oils. Apply lanolin-based barrier creams daily. The US military issues cold weather barrier cream to troops. The active ingredient? Lanolin. They weren't dirty. They were engineered for survival. The grease layer wasn't filth. It was armor. They are a testament to deep understanding of physics, biology, material science, and system design. They teach us true preparedness isn't about fancy gear or newest technology. It's about knowledge and skills that work when systems fail. In our world, where the systems we depend on are increasingly fragile, the Peasant Survival Manual offers something invaluable, a blueprint for self-reliance. Proof that you don't need high technology to create a warm, comfortable, secure home. What you do need is understanding of natural materials and willingness to work with nature, not against it. Do we continue to rely exclusively on fragile, energy-intensive systems that collapse when power goes out? Or do we relearn resilient design principles proven to work for centuries? The medieval peasant wasn't smarter than us, but in many ways they were wiser. They understood survival wasn't about dominance over nature through technology. It was about integration, using observation, experience, and accumulated knowledge to create systems that were resilient, adaptable, and regenerative. If this knowledge is valuable to you, make sure you're subscribed. We're uncovering more forgotten systems that could change how you think about survival and self-reliance. Which of these ancient skills do you think is most vital for us to relearn today? Let me know in the comments below. The peasants' winter was long and hard, but they survived it generation after generation, using nothing but ingenuity, observation, and the resources the land provided. We can too.